Hello, ladies and... Oh, shit. Stepped on the mirror. Oh, and it didn't break. Ooh. Welcome to Project Porsche. On this episode, I'll be soundproofing the insides of my doors. I'll mount the electronic control box for the power door lock kit underneath the dash. And I'll do some soldering and modifying of the wiring harness and then get it ready to install in the car. Welcome to Project Porsche, where I build my ideal version of a 924S. What's up, everybody? Welcome to Project Porsche. I just saw that little frog thing for the first time. I'm like, really?
Like this desert rain frog. Squeaking viral sensation.
Alright, so I ended up getting this Siless stuff from Walmart. Well, it's probably like super overboard, but just in case, upside down. They actually sent it to me straight from Siless. I guess that's the name of their company. I decided on this brand because of the funnel or butyl or however you say it. It's I got 36 square feet of it for $50. They said it doesn't smell, but I'm trying to smell it through a face mask. So before I soundproof the inside of the doors, I took some time and I tried to find every little dent and ding that was in the doors and tried to get them out before I put the soundproofing in. So I got out my long straight edge, a ruler, my tape measure, a knife to cut the soundproofing, a roller that I got years ago to roll it flat, and my heat gun to make it warm so that it was easy to manipulate and stick to the inside of the doors. Finally got the first piece in there. I really tried to make sure it was completely flat. But I could tell why they tell you to wear gloves when you're putting this stuff in. Unless where you're living is really hot, you're probably going to need a heat gun or at the very least a hair dryer. The heat gun makes it a lot easier to lay flat, but it also makes it really sticky. So wherever you stick this stuff, you got to plan on it being stuck there. They advertise aluminum tape to cover up the seams, but I did a lot of measuring and I just cut my pieces real close and I butted all of my pieces up against each other, and I'm calling that good. I'm not going to worry about covering up the seams. I don't think that there will be any problem with just doing it like this. And here's a shot of the finished product. Over on the passenger side, you can see some black 3M soundproofing that I used earlier. That's actually a piece of memory foam carpet padding that I thought maybe I would use in place of the original fiberglass, but I'm gonna end up redoing the insulation. The most factory spot would probably be through here, so that's where I decided to run my wires into the door. I decided to mount the box right above the trunk pop switch, and that way it was close to that switch so I could wire into that easily later on, and then it's just in a overall good spot next to the rest of the electronic fuses and stuff like that. So this little box, the holes are so close to the side of the plastic that really don't have a choice. I'm gonna use some of these star-headed bolts from the interior of my Camaro. There you can kind of see it. I think I might have to drill the plastic out just a touch because I don't know if these are gonna fit in here. Yeah, I don't want to crack the... Alright, so I took a drill bit and just opened up these holes just a little bit so I could get this screw through. Found a couple of these really short Camaro interior star head bolts, and I'm gonna use these because that way they don't protrude so far into that little cavity there. So this bad boy is gonna go like this. They're not pointed like the other ones, so I don't know if it's gonna go in there as easy. And those shorter screws worked out well. So the next thing for me to do was to start running my wires and figure out how I needed to modify the harness. Just like that. The way they've got these wired, I'm gonna have to end up folding this over, and this will end up in here somewhere because I don't have enough length from this point to get all the way to the door. Going to end up cutting and splicing 2 splices. I'll cut them here, and then they'll split off. One will go to the driver's, one will go to the passenger. So I'll put the splice like up right up here somewhere, and then that way I don't have to have this big chunk of bent back wires going back through this boot. I think this is probably the best way to go. This kit has 5 wires running to the driver's door solenoid, and then 2 wires running to the passenger door. And here's a shot of what the harness looked like all stretched out on the floor before I started cutting it up. And it was getting late, so it was time to wrap up and start again the next day. So I cleaned off my bench with some lacquer thinner. I just wanted to make sure it was clean. I'm gonna put my splice in here basically. Yeah, just to be safe, I'm gonna do 2 layers. I've come up with this way of holding my wires for soldering. I use a couple of clamps and then I set a couple of bricks on it to keep the wires tight, and then that way I'm able to put enough pressure on the wire with my soldering iron and get the solder to actually melt. It's not like the best soldering job ever, but one thing that bothered me is this dang thing crimped the wire. I covered up the crimped portion of the wire with the extra heat shrink tubing that I put on there. Then, after that, I protected the wires underneath the clamps with heat shrink tubing so that the clamps wouldn't cause the wire to be crimped underneath the heat and pressure. I made my marks on my wire so I knew where to reference the heat shrink so that it would be in the middle. And then I put on one more extra set of shrink wrap. I'm just gonna run a wire that I can use straight off the battery. That way I know that it's not screwing with any of the regular Porsche wires. So there's a hole in the firewall behind the battery, and I've got a couple of these grommets, but I found this in my junk electrical thing, which is for drill or something, but I think that this will work perfect. I can actually shove this thing in that hole, and it looks like it's almost perfect size. I'm just gonna cut this off. Showing. So somebody put an aftermarket battery tender charger thing on here. I'm gonna cut off all this electrical tape that I put on here to cover this bolt, and I'm gonna add in one more ring terminal with my hot wires going through the firewall. I'll just have one more ring terminal coming off of here. You can see the light there coming from the other side. I think I can get 2 wires through there, so I might put another one in there just because I can for a later date. That'll work. I'm gonna run 2 wires while I'm at it. That way, if I add my power seats or whatever, try to figure out how much extra I should give myself. This wire, I think I got this from Menards. Oh yeah, it's freaking perfect. So I'm gonna cover up this wire with loom, and then I'm gonna stick it through this. This is gonna work good. So here I'm soldering in my main hot red wire. You definitely need a soldering iron that gets hot enough, like this automotive version that I have here. Then I brought my harness over to the car and I started covering the 2 red hot power wires with my wiring loom. Then I brought it back over to the bench and finished the wire loom on the red wires and sealed up the ends with some heat shrink. And then finally here, I'm soldering some extra black negative ground wire into the harness. Then I moved on to the rest of the wiring harness. I laid all the wires out nice and flat. Then I wrapped them with some electrical tape to keep them even. Then I covered the harness with the braided loom. And finally, I sealed the ends with some heat shrink tubing. Alright, so got my harness here. Took me quite a while to get to this point, which I have to say it does look pretty darn good if I do say so myself. Once I get these other few wires loomed up and out of the way, look like a fancy dandy wire loom. So I've got the passenger side all like ready to go and loomed up. Driver's side, this is thick, it's got the 5 wires in it, ready to go. And then I added an extra power wire into the loom for a later date since I'm going to be going through the firewall. 1 power wire that I soldered to the red power wire and then an extra 1. Figured why not, because I'd really like to put heated seats in this thing, or actually I'm definitely going to be putting other electronic stuff in here. So there she be. Next time, I'll be putting this wiring harness in the car and continuing on a bunch of other stuff too. If you like the show, please hit subscribe. Let me know what you think. Any and all support, I really appreciate it. Thanks for watching, everyone.
This is pretty much the worst video ever made.
Be sure to check back for new episodes of Project Porsche. Bye-bye. Bye. Bye-bye.